Hey, good evening, everyone. John Arnold here from Protect and Serve. Listen, thank you for tuning in. This is our 23rd episode. We want to welcome you to the show tonight. Listen, tonight is a very important discussion with everything that's going on around the nation. Not matter of fact, around the world. It is an international thing that's going on with police officers, police departments, and communities. And tonight we want to talk about police reform. We've been hearing about defund the police, abolish the police, and reforming the police. What's the difference? How is it going to be good for the community? That's the bottom line. If the police were hired to work for the community, there should be some type of service that they provide, as well as protecting the community to ensure that the community is safe in their job that they're paid to perform. Listen, it's your tax dollars that pays their salary. And there's a new attitude where there's a sense of entitlement. Us officers who are retired, us oldest officers, we sit back and we look and we're like, wait a minute, we forget it. We forget the, meaning police officers, we flip the script. The script is not that the community works for us. We work for the community. And that's an old philosophy in policing that is deeply embedded in why people become police officers, to protect and serve the community. And we talk about police reform. In Nigeria, their cops are shooting civilians. In the United States, cops are shooting civilians. How did we get here? That's the question in 2020. How did we get here where it's so widespread? Listen, has it been going on for many years? Yes, probably so. Is it now being more broadcasted? Yes. It's being broadcasted through the use of cellular phones and the ability to broadcast now live. So now we're starting to see. And what are we going to do? Are we going to be safe? Listen, we have the bad guys in our communities and we have the police in our communities that now we have to worry about. Can we work together? Can there be true police reform? Or do we have to abolish the police system like some are suggesting? Will that work? That's going to be the discussion tonight. That's going to be something. I don't want to come with you with stats because, one thing I found about people who give you stats all the time is that they give you stats and the stats are old. All right. What they're giving you is 2 weeks later, results that are 2 weeks later from things that they implemented. But if you don't feel safe coming outside your house door, I don't care what the stats say. If I cannot go out to my car or my children can't play in front of their house, and we're not safe, you could take your stats and shove them. I'm just being for real. All right. And then on top of that, I have to worry about the criminal element. But now if I send my child out to go to the store, go to school, drive down to see their family, not have to worry about cops assaulting them or assailing them. That's the discussion we want to talk about. What is out there to change this mentality, to change this cycle that we're seeing? George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. These are common names that our children should not be hearing about. We are beyond this. We are better than this. This happened in the 60s. And now in 2020, we are still arguing and fighting for the same liberties. We're still trying to get the same justice. I watched Dragnet. Now I'm telling you how old I am, but I watched Dragnet the other night. And even back then in the 60s, they were fighting. Black people, people of color, were fighting for equality. And what is happening now? Where are we going to go? Are we going to still doing the same thing over and over and over again? Someone says that, listen, to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's insanity. And I know that you're not insane people. So listen, I want you to join in on the discussion tonight. Listen, pull a chair up. Drink your tea. I don't care what it is that you drink, do you. But tonight, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about this thing because we want to know. The question tonight is, will police reform? How can we have police reform and make our communities safer? So listen, I'm not going to do all the talking tonight. I got two people who are experts in their field, two people who have been on the job just as long as me and have experienced a lot of things. We experienced a lot of things together, along with a lot of the officers that are in the comments watching the live today. They're going to be with me. Come on, I'm going to bring in retired Newark Detective Stephanie Treadwell. Hey, Stephanie, how are you? And I'm going to bring in retired Essex County Prosecutor's Office Detective Anthony Cox. Hey, guys, how are you?
How you doing? All right.
Say hello to our audience today. How's everybody doing?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So listen, all right. We have, I was telling the audience that in the 60s, remember Dragnet?
Yep.
Sergeant Friday and all the things. We used to watch it.
All the old shows.
All the old shows. Adam 12 and all those shows. So I was watching an episode and they were talking about it was the black power movement back then. And that's when they were calling the cops pigs and all the other names that they were calling them. And the cops, it was always like it was a feud in the community. The same issues. It was amazing to me because the same issues that were going on in the 60s when I was a little boy is now still going on. And tonight we're in a different time. Listen, Nigeria is blowing up. You guys watch what's going on in Nigeria. I mean, they have a unit over in Nigeria that is shooting civilians, have been extorting them, have been robbing them. And listen, I mean, it's going on in the United States as well. That's why we've had consent decrees. So now we're talking about police reform. And the question is police reform doable? Is it going to work moving forward? We're in 2020. We're on the heels of a presidential election. We have a president who says he's for law. His slogan is "Make America Great Again." And when people hear that, they think going back to something, going back again or doing it again. It's not going to happen. The young people, the voting bloc is just changing the world. It's even in Nigeria, they're getting ready to do a revolution over there. And that's what's happening in the country here, in the states here, in New Jersey, and in Michigan, and Minnesota, Minneapolis, all these states and all these cities. The people are coming together and they're saying, listen, we're tired of it. We're tired of it. So the thing is that the question is, we talk about police reform. The evidence shows that the majority of Americans support the police. That's something that they support. They don't support what the police are doing. And the majority of police officers support the work in the community, working with the community. But tonight, what I want to do is I want us to get into each other's heads. I want us to go back to the point where what encouraged us to take on the job when we were, we don't have to tell what age we were. All right.
When I was younger.
Yeah, when we was younger. But do you remember taking the civil service test?
Yeah.
And how did you feel taking the civil service test, knowing that was the first step that you were making toward being a police officer? Let's talk about that. Let's start there. That's a good place to start.
Taking the test. I'm trying to think. Did we study? Yeah, they had this book called ARCO.
ARCO. Remember ARCO?
Yeah. Yeah, and we kind of studied for that. A few years after I got on, then, like bronze shells or whatever was trying to help out and give little classes or whatever. But I remember taking the test. I first got my application was handed to me when I was in church.
Right. Wow.
I just totally believe that everything is done because of God. So he sent it to me.
Right. I'm with you on that.
Through Captain Otis Barnes. So that's
Otis
when I.
Barnes. Wow, you bringing back some names down. He worked with my dad.
Yeah. So
he worked with my dad.
My application was handed to me also in church by Reverend Harry Batts, East Orange, Messiah Baptist Church.
Yeah. Reverend Batts, Messiah.
Oh, yeah.
And I know Messiah. My mom used to go to that church. Reverend Batts. So when you took the test. And you got the results, and like when I took it, I got all these different police departments that I had to choose from. I had East Orange, I had Orange, I had some other towns down in South Jersey, but I really took it for Newark because my dad was a Newark lieutenant. He was a decorated Newark police officer. So of course, every boy he wants to follow in the footsteps of his dad. Well, I didn't really want to. My dad told me. He's like, "Listen, you're gonna take the test." But I don't want nothing to do with that, But so I took it, and then then I got excited about it. Then I got all these. I said, okay, who do I want to go to? Do I want to go here? Do I want to go there? And it was a different feel back then. You know, I was really looking forward to it. You know, when I rode through the community, you know, like when you graduated the academy, you got out there on the job and you had your uniform on, you know, I mean, it made me feel good. I don't know about everyone else, but it really made me feel good that I felt that I was doing a service to people, you know. And am I alone, or you two agree?
No,
definitely agree.
Yeah, I think that was like the main thing, you know, doing something, you know, with the compassion of you know, doing this, and they had a great dental plan. I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's one thing you got with the police department.
Benefits.
You didn't get the good pay, but you got the good benefits.
Yeah, I had kids. I had single parent. I had to take care of my kids. So
yeah, I mean, so listen. It provided an outlet for us. It provided a place that we can earn a living for our families, take care of our families, and provide a service to the community. Now, listen, I remember the second, you know, you go through training. You have a training officer, right? So after I was done with my training, I went out on patrol, and my first day on patrol by myself, I caught a strong arm robbery suspect. The young lady was terrorized. She was a medical student. The guy robbed her, and I was riding on patrol, and I saw him, and I, you know, right out of the book, man. Now I look at it now. I made some mistakes as a young officer, but the fact of the matter is, listen, I caught him. You know, put cuffs on him, brought him in. The young lady got her stuff back. You know, she was assaulted by this gentleman. We charged them. There was adjudication, and that's what I think. You know, when we take this job, the adjudication, we look for justice to be served. Victim who endured some type of crime or criminal activity has been received justice, and that's why I think we all took the job. And when I got on there, I didn't have the stuff with the hatred toward police officers. Like, you know, I was looking at one of the comments. Charles Upshaw, who was a retired North cop, he said when he was little, he had disdain for the police because his experience was different. Now, listen, I know a lot of people didn't like the police, but you had nothing to worry about if you came through the campus, unless, you know, you had a bad registration, you had a bad car, or you committed a crime. Then you had something to worry about. But other than that, it was like, hey, Officer Arnold, how you doing? Hey, little Arnold. That's what they used to call me, little Arnold, little Hawkeye, you know. And I really felt good about the job. But now, you know, I think as I got along in my career, maybe the 80s, there started to be a little bit of hostility towards officers. Where I'm sorry, say it again, Tom.
Crack era.
Yeah, the crack era, and of course, again, you know, they started with the gangs and the crack and all of that, and yeah, it became a lot of incidents where now the community started seeing more police presence in their community, and then when I was working in the 2000s, man, we had all these other cases coming on. I remember that we had Brown going on. We had all these different cases that we had protests going on around the city and around the nation. Even in the city of Newark, they were worried about protests. And one of the things that I like, and there's photographic evidence of this, that a lot of folks, you know, they called us. I don't know what they called us, but they didn't agree with it. But we told people like Larry Ham, who was also on our show at one time, we said, no, man, we're going to march with you. They said, what do you mean you're going to march with us? I said, yeah, we're going to march with you. This is our community too. He said, look, we're not going to go for the nonsense. We're not going to have people destroying fellow Newark business owners' property and stuff like that, but you're entitled to march. That's your constitutional right. So what we did was we were out there at the protest. People say, man, the police at the protest? But it was a bond because Director Venable was from Newark, I was from Newark, and most of the officers were from Newark. So it wasn't a big thing. And this is why we were getting ready to walk into the consent decree. So, you know, I know that it can work. I know that policing like it was back in the 60s, it wasn't perfect, but guess what? It wasn't like it is now. It wasn't like it was when we came on the job. Are there any personal incidents that either one of you want to talk about or share with the viewers about where you had to intercede and maybe stop or speak up? I mean, the comment is this. The comment is that good officers aren't saying anything about the bad officers. Now,
okay.
They are. Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. Sir.
I'm speaking.
Let's have it. Let's have it. I like that, Kamala.
Yeah, when the whole Rodney thing, King thing happened,
yes,
and it just riots broke out across the country. So when we got the information, we were all told to get into riot gear. Put the riot helmets on. They had us stand on the steps of City Hall. However, before we even went out there, and we were in the office, and they was telling us, what was expected of us, and whatever, and what may happen. A lot of the guys got real hyped up, and I was like, okay, first one, throw a punch or swing on somebody else that ain't doing nothing, I'm coming after you. So, I mean, I told them, the guys that I work with, even though the guys I work with, they were awesome. I was in narcotics. They helped me a lot, but they knew old girl was 5'10", coming on this job, 173. Man, I had you sucking cement, my own people,
right,
that I'm working with. But
right.
They understood, you cannot do that around me. It's not happening.
Right.
Same way in East Orange when I came on. First of all, you had respect for your community. Came on, you got to know the people in your community. Basically, I went to East Orange because I lived there. I grew up in East Orange, so I wanted to be a police officer there, to help out. You had those on the opposite side of the law, and they had a job that they considered doing. I had one I considered doing, but it was a respect for each other.
Mm.
What they done in the dark sometimes came to the light, but
mm-hmm.
That's what it was. And like Steph said, any cop that had issues with, first of all, not living in the community and doing something to someone of color or someone who lived in the community, especially when they were handcuffed, told them, no, don't stop right now.
Yeah. And
sometimes it got internal or it went to the locker rooms
mm-hmm.
after work. That's not what's being told also, but right. That was something in-house that happened that sometimes the community never knows about, those untold stories. But you dealt with them.
Right.
And you know who was who, and they knew at that moment not to do it again.
Right.
That's basically, things that I'm talking stuff.
I hear you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, sir. That was it.
You know what? I remember a situation where it was a lieutenant that got real stank with me. And this is like early on coming on the job, and I was learning chain of command and your superior officer, but see, sometimes it will hit you. Mm-hmm. And whatever he did, I took my belt off, my gun, badge, radio. I gave it back to them. I said, here, y'all can have this. I said, and I told him, I said, now I'm going to fight you like a black woman. And I sent all my stuff down to internal affairs. They called me back, said, put my stuff back on and, just let it go. But, I just had got that angry. Well, and then I was like, I'm working with you. The fight ain't with us.
Yeah.
There's problems out on the street and you want to fight me? Come on, bring it.
Well, listen, this is a true story, and this is a moment of transparency. We all know about the movie The American Gangster, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you had Vinny Abruzzo, who is deceased now. You had Eddie Jones, who's deceased now. Eddie Jones was a captain in the prosecutor's office after he left Newark. And you had Al Spearman, who actually still resides in Essex County. And one of the stories they told me that about the corruption was so bad in Newark, as well as other police departments, that when they took all those officers down. Now, Steph, you remember narcotics, and Tony, you might remember narcotics, the old narcotics. When it was upstairs, you had that metal gate that you had to be buzzed in and buzzed out in order to get up there to get reports and everything.
Yeah, I worked up there.
Okay, so Eddie Jones, who was part of the takedown of the corrupt cops, when he came back to Newark, when he left the county task force and went back to Newark, the officers up there were actually beating him up They were actually beating him up, and he ran downstairs to get out. But you can't get out because you had. And if it wasn't for another black officer, I forget, I think his name was Holiday or someone, he was walking. Holloway actually pulled his weapon out on the cops and said, if you hit him one more time and don't let him out, I'm going to bust off on you. So, a lot of stuff is not publicized to the public, but a lot of stuff we dealt with on that department. And we let jokers know. So there was some that would do the stuff, and Tony, we all know one guy who did it because Tony, he got upset with you when you took away his stash during a raid. But the thing is that they knew who to mess with, who to do their nonsense around, and who not to do it around. And so the allegation that good cops aren't saying anything or doing anything against bad cops is not automatically true. But the consequence of coming out is that you have no support. So thank God now with good police reform that officers now have an obligation, a legal obligation, which means that now they have protection to talk to as the young folks say, snitch on the bad cops, because we all know that there are good cops and we know there are bad cops. That's an undeniable fact. We have to, and has been throughout the history. It's not something that's new. There've been bad cops since saying, listen, man himself is susceptible to committing crime and sinning, doing things that he should not do. It's just in our nature. So the thing is, yes, that's why they have internal affairs. That's why they have review boards. That's why they have all these things, because there are some cops who have been doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and they shine a light on the whole department. And when people look at Blue, they don't see that cop. That cop never, first of all, that cop is not in uniform. He's not the first responding officer to the scene. He's the one that's out there doing all this stuff under the cloak of darkness. But you, the officer in the uniform that respond, you get the brunt of what they're doing and what they're saying. So let's talk about reform for a second. All right, reform. The thing is that it's not that we don't have a playbook for reform. All right, we do have a playbook for reform. We have a playbook for reform that was developed by the President of the United States through his Attorney General, talking about Barack Obama through Eric Holder. That's why you saw a lot of consent decrees and federal monitors going on throughout the nation. And the thing that I found about the consent decree, when North went into consent decree, I was like, listen, and me and the director had this conversation, and I said, listen, it was a lot of things that were factual, that were found out about Newark officers doing to the citizens illegal things, robbing them, stealing, beating them, falsely arresting them, doing all types of things. You can read the report. You can see it online. It's on the U.S. Attorney website. It's on Newark Police Department's website, right? A lot of things that we know, the three of us know, we saw and witnessed, and we knew. So when the consent decree came, we looked at it and we said, you know what? This is going to make the department better. It's going to make it better as opposed to being such like a punishment. It's always how you look at something that makes the difference. And you can look at a situation and say, oh, this is really bad, or this is an opportunity for me to come out of something. So the consent decree came in. The problem is that I have two problems with consent decrees. Most departments who filed the consent decrees saw a good reform in their department. They made changes. Listen to what I'm saying. From the bottom to the top. That's key. Remember that point. From the bottom to the top. The departments that did not make reform stayed in consent decrees. A consent decree is usually 4 to 5 years. If you're good, if you make the reforms, you can get out of it, because it costs millions of dollars each year. You can get out of a consent decree early if you make the reforms and you're really pushing your people to change. But some departments went 10 years. Some departments reneged on their consent decree because they just couldn't do it. And the reason was they wouldn't get rid of bad cops, and they wouldn't teach their cops or train their cops in de-escalation. So these are the things. And the third problem, like I said, from the bottom to the top, listen to this. Most consent decrees deal with the frontline officers, right? But what about the ones running the departments?
Top to the bottom.
The top to the bottom. The ones that sit at the top are normally the ones who were brought up in the same systemic racist police system.
Rolls downhill.
And it falls downhill. George Floyd is an example of that. There was a few officers who were the training officers. George Chauvin, whatever his name is, he was the training officers for those new officers. And what did they do? They were asking him, they said, listen, man, you think we should get up off of him? You know, he's not moving. And the other officer, the training officer, the senior officer didn't say anything. That's on the street. How about leadership? If you have leaders who are brought up in systemic racism and only know that way of leading and managing,
that's what they're going to teach.
That's what it's going to teach. I taught my crew. Well, actually, I taught my crew and my leadership. I give credit to my dad because my dad was my teacher. Because I listened to what he did, I listened to his philosophy, and it worked for me because I had the same type of nature as him, you know, and I had the same love of the community. But most of the other superiors who we know, it was the same process. When they became lieutenants, when they became captains, they did the same nonsense that they did when they were detectives and line officers. So when you look at a department, what I see is part of reform, true reform, is changing it. Sometimes you got to look at the top. You got to get rid of the upper leadership, you know, or put new leadership in there and go a different direction. And that's the problem. So, you know, both of these departments, I mean, you have leaders who are connected to the community. You know, listen, we always talk about Newark because I'm an adopted Newark son of the Newark Police Department. But the thing is that a lot of these officers grew up in the community. That's the other thing finding from the consent decree. You all said something that's key. You all got your application. You both got your applications in church. You were from the community. That makes a difference. That makes a difference. I mean, how'd you feel? Like I said, I want to go back to how'd you feel the first day, graduated the county, put the uniform on, you was out there, you were able to do your own thing. What give us an example of what you did that made a difference in the community that was different from just the regular rigmarole, just riding around and looking good in your uniform.
Talking to people.
Engagement.
Yeah, they was like, where you from? I was like, oh, that's what they asked the gang members. Where you from?
Right.
Yeah. How'd you get this job? How'd you do this? I, just had a conversation. I had a conversation with everybody, had any type of encounter with. And, and sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad. Even because when I was working in narcotics, I never forget, we was bringing this guy up and and I would start singing a Aretha Franklin song, Respect, and he started singing the background. So I was like, even though I had him cuffed and I was, taking his freedom away from him temporarily, but, just your communication is key.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, communication is real key. I want to look at a couple of comments before I move on. I know that there's Nia Imani. How are you, Sister Nia? I don't know what part you were talking about, but she asked a question. She said, "How does that make a difference?" I wish I knew specifically. Maybe you can comment and ask the question or be more clear, give us more clarification on what particular item you were talking about that makes a difference in good policing, because there's several things that we have been discussing so far. But one, like you said, is the community, is the communication. Policing is a relationship. It's a relationship between law enforcement. Good policing is a relationship between the police department and the community that is sworn to protect and serve. And the thing is that when any good relationship, you have to have communication. Husband and wife has to have communication. Father to the children have to have communication. We as friends, we have to have communication. And why not in the community when we're out here doing our job in law enforcement? So that's key. And that's one thing that I like to do as a deputy director, I used to like to go out in the community on the community walks because you know what? It gave me a sense of what's really going on. Stuff that I didn't get from the police departments. And you know, Steph, you were out there a couple of times. You know, y'all it went back. The officers were buying the little kids. We saw what was going on. You know, the little kids saw the different things that we did as police officers. You know, we saw the ice cream truck and we saw a couple of kids on the block. They didn't get ice cream. We were like, come here. We said, remember that? We buy everybody ice cream. We want everybody, all the officers pitched in, and we made sure every kid on that block had ice cream. The ice cream man was happy. But guess what? The community.
I think, Sister Imani answered you. She said, being given an application in church. Now, we were referring to Stephanie, Detective Treadwell stated that that's when she first got our police application in church, and so did I. That's all we were just referring to that. Just ironic that we both got our police application from church. You know,
and you know what I like about that? I'm glad you asked that question, Sister Imani, because you know what that showed? That was a relationship between the department and the church, because the church, the masjid, those are places. I know when I was deputy director, I had on our community walks, we had imams walking with us, we had pastors walking with us, we had rabbis walking with us, and to get to change the mentality of a police department. Listen. What better than the history of the Black church used to be, they were the voice of the voiceless in the community. If you wanted to get something out in the community, it was through the church. The church was the avenue. I'm not saying that's the case today, but back then, that was the avenue. Everyone knew it, you know, and that's one thing that I thank Eugene Venable for doing was that he put clergy and community under the director's office, and it was under me. So when we had an issue in the community, listen, man, even if a young brother wanted to turn himself in, you know, we were able to say, listen, okay, pastor, you're going to bring him in. Fine, no problem. We're going to ensure that nothing happens to, and nothing happened to that young man. And the same thing is if we had to talk to the community because there were some racial tensions or some type of, fighting or a police officer shot someone in the community. That was the neutral ground where we all came to meet and talk about and come to resolution. Resolution is the key. And what happens a lot in New York, which is a different monster altogether, but what they're doing is they're changing their leadership where you see more Black and brown leaders in positions of power in the community. And the number one thing they have is they have a bond or an alliance with the church, which I think is very good. The church, the masjid, you know, the rabbis, and it's very important. So that question, that's what used to happen. That's what used to happen is that the churches, you know, and I'm not trying to put any pastors on blast. You know, I'm a pastor, and I just keep it real. But the church back then used to be so strong in the community. It was grounded in the community. But now a lot of the members, now this is going off. This is a little pastor thing here. What we're finding a lot of churches now is a lot of the members come into the church from outside. They're no longer part of the community. They drive into the church and they drive out. And some of the pastors drive into the church and they drive out. So a lot of pastors are in the community and don't know what's going on in their own community, you know, and that's because, you know, one thing they're guilty of doing is we say all the time in church, you having church just inside the church. You need to get outside and service the community.
True.
And that's the same thing with law enforcement. You know, you can't just be in the radio car, you know,
get out on the street,
get in stat.
Yeah, walk the street. You know, when I came on, it was came on at the Safe Neighborhood Unit, and we walked for 2 years. Mm-hmm. I walked South Orange Avenue area, the whole little area in East Orange, 12 midnight to 8 in the morning. And what I did around before the stores closed, I would go to each store that was open and let them know I will be walking that area at midnight. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got to know the neighborhood, you know, and citizens out there. I knew some that were out there, but not everyone, you know, and back it was still now. If anybody who doesn't know about South Orange Avenue, one side is East Orange, one side is North. And many times I'm walking midnights, see somebody carrying a TV under a sheet, And one guy even asked me, he said, "Officer, that's his Starnes over there, right?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, all right, I'm good." I said, "Well, come here for a minute, man." He's like, put the TV down, walk towards me. And I said, "What's under there?" He's like, "Well, that's my cousin TV." I said, "Why you have it under a sheet?" He said, "Oh, so nobody else will steal it." I said, "Come here." Called for a Newark radio car, found out he just broke into someone's house. And locked. It was that easy back then, seriously.
Yeah.
Just like now it's easy with social media, but hint if no one knows what I'm talking about, you know.
Yeah.
But you have to have a rapport with people. And like you said, I grew up in East Orange. I wanted to be a police officer in East Orange. That helped me a lot.
Yes.
Same thing with like Newark. You know, if you have a rapport with your community, I'll say 8 times out of 10, it's not as hard. A lot of times, I guess, you know, now we have technology that's changed a lot. You have juveniles being raised by not parents. Not that it has to be a two-parent household, but
Parent.
a parent, not their great-grandmother, great-grandmothers.
Mm-hmm.
And you have police officers not caring about the people they work with.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. That's my perspective of it. So
Right.
they come to work, they upset about something else, come to work, and they take it out on people on the street in their community. So that says a lot, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we have a lot of.
Well, even in the schools, we would go to schools. We weren't assigned to the schools when I initially came on, but we weren't assigned to schools. But we did. Alice Thomas, she had put a couple of comments up there, and we worked very close together. And that's when one time it really hit me. We went to Samuel A. Berliner. It was a school for, you know, kids that had, you know, they were ward to the court, or, you know, something was going on with their parents. A lot of kids were saying their parents was gang members. And me and my partner, Soji Powell, we went there one day to do the great program. And first they didn't want us to come because they said that they would come one day and then they wouldn't come back again. That's when I found out, after we started coming back every week, that those kids felt like they were going to be abandoned.
Mm.
And that was an issue with us. So we made sure that we went. But those kids, they were rough. But I tell you what, when we had police week and we couldn't show up, they put those kids, when they found out where we were down at Lincoln Park or Military Park, they put those kids in the bus, brung them down, because they was tearing that school up. They were looking for us.
Yeah.
So, you know, abandonment. Oh, I felt so bad for those, even though they be like going up and down, eyeing you up and down, and, you know, oh, people snitching, you know, snitches get stitches, and other ones, they wind up in ditches. And I said they also get immunity from prosecution.
Yes.
So.
And also, just to answer Ms. Amani's comment, she stated, so I profiled them now. Midnights. An average person would not be walking down the street on South Orange Avenue carrying a TV with a sheet over. If he's moving, helping somebody move, carry wherever you're going. And so once, I didn't tell the whole story, he was record checked, he had warrants, and they found out when Newark came that he had broken into someone's house right around the corner, but he wasn't profiled.
Yeah, profiling is a little different.
Different than that.
Yeah, that's suspicious. That's what we call suspicious activity, because that's the norm. You know, you normally don't see people walking down the street carrying a TV. You know,
under a blanket.
On a blanket. Now, if I was the homeowner, I'd be glad that you stopped them, because you know that, you know, to have someone break into your house is one of the ultimate violations of privacy. You know, but yeah, I mean that's good that we're having this discussion, because you know the audience needs to know that you know, there's what the difference is. It might appear to be something, but it's not. You know, it's just a routine police work. Charles Upshaw said when he was on patrol, he had to log in at least one incident where you park the car, the police vehicle, and walk your beat to engage the citizenry. Exactly. And visit stores. That's right, because when you do that, sometimes you stumble upon things. It's also one of the most dangerous times of your shift is when you get out and you start doing checks, because you might run up on something. You might walk into something. You know, I heard over in Britain one time there was an officer. They were responding. You know, they didn't carry guns, but Britain, was having the UK was having an influx of guns and drugs. You know, you have drugs, you have guns, and
Mhm.
officers, unarmed officers, walked into a domestic call in what they call their flats over there, and the guys walking out had just committed a murder. So what do? They shot the police officers. You know, so that's what it is. But yeah, so being I don't think that's profiling. I think that's doing your job. That's being alert. As part of your being alert and attentive to what's going on in your neighborhood. If you know your neighborhood, you know when something's amiss in your neighborhood, and it's called suspicious activity, not profiling. So that's the thing. But the other thing is that when we talk about changing reform or bringing reform, what are the key elements of reform? And some of the key elements of reform are: one, you have to monitor police activity, police actions against citizens. You have to watch them. Now, if you want to talk about profiling, we can profile police officers. All right, and that's what's done. There's flags and warnings that go off when a police officer has a certain amount of incidents against complaints brought against them and whatnot. And what you got to do is listen. We at the time now where you can't play with these bad officers. You got to get rid of them. They're bad officers. You got to get rid of them. You know, you have to. The laws are changing. The Attorney General of the State of New Jersey now is fighting in court with the unions to go back and release the records, disciplinary records of police officers on the job. There are indicators before this even came about, but a lot of police departments weren't following it. And you have to follow it. If it was put in place, it's the reason why it was put in place. It's to monitor the actions and activities of your officers, because your officers are entrusted with weapons. They're entrusted with powers to lock people up and take away their life if that be necessary. So you have to monitor that. The other thing is that we're finding that these departments, the reason why reform hasn't changed is because they have not trained their officers sufficiently in de-escalation. That's important. You have to train them and continually train them in de-escalation. We saw a lot of incidents that have gone on where one of the previous comments were that now these new cops on the job, a lot of the newer ones, they have a sense of entitlement. And instead of de-escalating the situation, they elevate the situation. They talk to you any way they want to. They're more disrespectful than they should be. And those are complaints that you as a citizen have a right to bring forward to the department to make the complaint against an officer that is unprofessional and has been verbally abusive or physically abusive to you. You have the right. Every police department now is mandated to have a form when you first walk in, that if you want to make an internal affairs complaint, the form is there for you to make it. If you want to have a supervisor come to the scene, they have to have a supervisor come to the scene for you to make your complaint. Or the supervisor will direct you and say, listen, I'm at headquarters. This is the address. Please respond here, and I will take your complaint. Because that's where it is. That's what good reform has brought us to. And let me say this about officers. We are always the ones that bring these things upon ourselves. We bring it upon ourselves. The other thing, two things that we find out in our good reform is, one, you have to have enough officers. They're finding out that departments that don't have enough officers, the officers are overworked, they're overstressed. And who is the recipient of that? The citizens. They're going to take that out on the citizens. Now I've been to some ComStats. Listen, some ComStats, it's unnecessary what goes on in there. The abuse that they take. Who do you think the officers are going to come out and take it out on? They're going to take it out on their subordinates. We're going to take it out on the citizens. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is that we have to understand that those are the things that's why reform is good. And you as the citizen, you need to be engaged. Listen, I'll take the blame and I'll agree with you, but there are some things that we need to talk about. Let's talk. Let's have a discussion. Listen, a lot of folks in our community don't go to PTA meetings. And the only time you go to a community meeting with police officers is when you want to protest or get upset. No, you should be going there. Why? all the time. Why? Because you want to know what's going on and how the police are serving you. You want to know what the results of their services in the community, right? And there was a movement. Check this out. There was a movement of a superior officer in a major department. And listen, when they moved him, he didn't protest. The community protested. They were like, "No, you putting him back.
Bring him back."
What you doing?
I know somebody like that too.
Yeah, I know somebody like that too. And listen, that's the kind of unity I'm talking about. That's the kind of service in unity I'm talking about between community and policing. Where that if you move me, if you move John Arnold, you're gonna have some. If you the chief, you're gonna have some phone calls, from the mayor to the governor to the president, say, "No, put him back, Jack. Put him back." But the main thing is, I want to show you. Listen, I want to show you guys a picture. Viewers, I want to show you a picture. This happened in Atlanta in 1948. Can the producer, put up that picture of the cops in Atlanta in 1948? Okay, so we're looking at this picture. I don't know if the viewers can see it clearly, but what's missing from these police officers? Guns. Thank you, producer. Thank you. These officers here were Atlanta's first black police officer. This is 1948. Okay, 1948, less than 100 years ago. These a little bit over 100 years. These officers were Atlanta's first black police officers, and what happened was in that picture, the reason that picture was taken, they were not allowed to carry guns. They could not arrest white people. They could not go to the police precinct. That picture was taken in the downstairs basement of the local YMCA.
That sucks.
Because they were not allowed to do it. So they actually went out in the community on patrol. And guess what? The community patrolled with them. How about that? The community patrolled with them. Thank you for the picture, producer. So, that's the type of policing that existed. And I think that if it happened once, it can happen again. It should happen again. Right? Unlike the next picture I'm going to show you that happened down in Florida, Miami, Florida. Look at this bozo. Okay.
No.
Now, here he is in full uniform at a polling place, right? With a Trump mask on, 2020. Trump 2020. Now, I don't know what it says. It says no more something. I don't know what that something is or whatever it is. But this idiot shows up. Yes, I called him an idiot because that's what he is. Because if he was one of my officers, he'd be stripped right now for doing something stupid like that. He'd be going through the process right now. So federal law states that unless the police have to respond there for a crime, that you're not supposed to put officers and introduce guns into the polling place because it's a point of intimidation. That's federal law. So he should be charged on a federal. Now, listen, he said he was off duty, but guess what, bro? You in full uniform. You should have responded there in your clothes. And even if when you go to poll, I know in New Jersey they frown upon you walking into polling places with actual candidate endorsement, like shirts and stuff like that. Yeah, man. And what happens is stupidity like that makes all officers look bad, because what they do is, one thing I saw in a couple of his rallies where they got cops for I'm like, who? I said a lot of cops don't support him because it's just just like it's cruelty, systemic racism, and racist practices against the community. There's racist practices against Black and Latino officers in the departments. So come on, we don't support that. We don't support that at all. You treat us like that, we know how you treat the community. So those officers, the black officers in Atlanta, were not allowed to arrest whites. They had a lot of restrictions. I remember my dad came on in 1967, right around the time of the riots. I was about 2 or 3 years old. He came on Newark, and one of the things that he did was they always had the black officers in the West District where the heart of the riots were. they had to walk the beat. They couldn't ride a radio car. You had to be, I don't know what you had to jump over hoops, go do backflips, and pick up an elephant in order to get a radio car because you weren't allowed to do it. But yet, and guess what? You could not go over to the Italian section of the city of Newark and make an arrest. This is 1967 and 68, right? A lot of those from 1968 to the time that I got on, a lot of the people that he used to work for, they were still on the job. Do you know the years of continual teaching in a systemic racist police system that have been introduced into that department? So thank God that there was a change in leadership. Hubert Williams, I think, was the first black police director in the city of Newark, and from him came other black superiors. You had other black police directors, black chiefs who changed the direction of the police department. And like I said, police departments are not perfect because we had some problems with having black chiefs and black directors in the job that we had to go and check them real quick too. But the thing is that it was moving forward. It's a start in order to make our community safer. The last part of it, let me ask you this: when you were on the job, did you ever hear of officer resiliency training or words like operational stress management? No, right?
Not at all.
So you had to deal with all of the stuff, the pressures on the outside community. You had to deal with the pressures on the inside of your police department that we can't even talk about and tell people about, because if you did, repercussions, you lose your job. And you couldn't, as Steph said, she was a single parent. She came on the job. She couldn't afford to lose her job. That she was now making money and had benefits for her kid, for her children. You had to deal with all of that, and there was no outlet. Do you know that police officers have one of the highest rates of suicide?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all know. I mean, Tony, God bless. We were talking about Epi last night, and stuff like that. I mean, because there's nowhere to turn to. And those who don't turn to suicide, where's their outlet? The community. The community. Yeah. All right. So we're going to be transparent. This is a moment of transparency here. And this is why it's important that you have good leadership to recognize the issues that go on. When these officers have these problems and they don't have an outlet, they rob, they steal. Why? Because a lot of them have the other largest number of drug abusers are police officers. That's the other issue. Oh yeah, we giving it to you right now on Protect and Serve. We letting all the cats out the bag, but we're telling you this so that you know how to move forward and dealing with your community. And the other thing is that when you have a good leader that's doing good things in the community, and I've seen it, and a lot of times I feel bad that I wasn't in a position to change some things. They force out good leaders. They forced out good leaders because of the politics of the job. That's a problem as well. But we had Darryl Yeverton said the first black. Listen to this in New Jersey. Now I didn't know this. He said Darryl Yeverton, Sergeant Yeverton. How you doing, Sarge? He said the first black New Jersey trooper. Man, he's a historian. He said was hired in 1965, and the state police were formed in 1921. Now, man, I'm gonna be honest with you. I wouldn't want to be that trooper that came on the job, because you gotta know the history of the New Jersey State Police. Look at their uniform, and it'll tell you a lot about their history, their origins, where they came from. And you look at them, and you look at the German Nazis from the World War II, you see a big resemblance, because the person that started the state police, you got to do some background on their history. So they wasn't trying to hire and have us come in there. And when you did come on there, he must have caught hell to graduate that academy and get through. I know when it came to boxing night, man, they must say, all right, we all gonna line up and turn tonight. It's his night tonight, and we don't even want to say what kind of word they were probably saying, but that's amazing. In 1921, it took you 40 something years to hire your first black trooper, in the state of New Jersey. Wow, that's crazy. Listen, my dad came on. He came on. They tried to knock him down because back then a lot of times couples weren't married through the original process. Through the formal process. My dad, mom, and dad, they were together so long they were what they call common law marriage. Do you know that they stopped him from being on the police department, saying, "Oh, you're not married. You're living in sin." Really, you're the moral compass for our community, right? Yeah, so then my mom and dad went got married. Said, okay, here you go. And that's why my dad started late at the academy over there on 18th Avenue in Newark, because of some little thing like that they were trying to knock him off. And listen, viewers, listen to what I'm saying. You have to take what we're listening. Listen to what we're saying over again. Write it down when you go to these meetings for this police reform, because it's coming. You're going to have an opportunity to speak up and speak out. Take whatever it is that you can use, take it and help mold and shape the police department for 2021. The police department that you want to see. Remember, you go to work, you pay taxes, and your taxes pay their salary. All right? Who do they work for? When I look up there and I see police officers sitting around, goofing off, I'll be like, hey, man, y'all work for me. Director, what's your officers doing up here on the street goofing off, trying to get women's numbers? You know what I'm saying? Come on. And those are the things that you got to look at and be like, listen, now you don't have to call up all the time and complain, because sometimes they're out there doing community engagement, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So, we don't know. But the thing is, if you know the officers acted inappropriately and not doing his job and goofing off, and they work for you. You know what I'm saying? So listen, hey, Sergeant Yelton, man, you are the man. He's Norman Schwarzkopf, New Jersey State Police badge number 1. Everyone knows who Norman Schwarzkopf is, right? He's the grandfather of the General Schwarzkopf, who was with the Operation Iraqi Freedom. That was I think it was his grandson. And General Schwarzkopf made history by marching on in Iraq and, leading the forces there, the United States, to victory over there in Iraq, in the first Iraq war, not the second, the first Iraq war with, George Bush. But listen, closing comments, on police reform. What can we do? Oh, you said that was the father. What can we do? Or what do you envision? What if you had the opportunity to take a police department and in your hands and remold it? What would you do? Let's hear it.
Basically, walk every street.
Talking to us. I thought you was talking to the audience.
See, you've been paying attention.
I'm paying attention. I thought you was
speaking. I'm speaking. Where's that shit? I'm speaking. Go ahead, Tom.
Walk every street in that city with my department. Get to know like I have a day of speaking of it.
She did the scroll, Tony.
Large intro, like you walk the city.
Yeah.
With the police department.
Right.
Start with the officers, it's going to be a big change.
Right.
Shake the whole thing up, as they say. Those who are in cars, walking, you have to switch everything around. Find out what, the community feels about the officers that are here, or your community, what problems that you're having. But do it in the street, walk the streets.
Right. Okay.
Can't do it, town hall meetings are fine, whatever, but they don't want to hear stats. They don't need to hear statistics. That was the last administration or whatever. Walk the streets and get to know your community. Get to know that your community have almost open door policy, basically.
Right.
You have those issues, tell me.
Right.
But police have to get back into the streets.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
And with the youth.
Yeah.
To the schools also. That's more important.
Definitely. That the youth are important.
Get on board with the Board of Ed and get involved with them. They can walk with you also.
Right.
That's where a lot of issues start.
Right. That's good.
Training is paramount. Like Captain Douglas, when he does training for his officers, he also bring the community in, so everybody get trained at the same time.
Right. Right.
And that's an awesome thing. That's the ultimate transparency. And then this way, you get closer to the community, because if they're sitting there and you guys sitting there and y'all learning the same things, and some of you guys is asking the same questions, some of you asking different questions, and you're kind of like learning from each other also. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, no. And listen, everything that the two of you just said is part of good reform, good reform practice. And one of the things that I would like to add to that is what's wrong with doing a survey? Send out, like, like when you do a campaign, you put out a poll. They do a poll. A lot of these colleges do a poll. And one of the things that I was for was, I said, listen, man, we need to have a poll done to see how we're doing. What areas can we change in? I mean, of course, you're gonna get the ones that come in and say, walk away, quit. But in those results, you're gonna get positive feedback, and you can't have thin skin. You cannot have thin skin. If they say that you're not patrolling our neighborhood, you're not, doing things the right way. We want more training. We want your police officers to spend more time in the academy, learning more subjects, especially like cultural diversity and de-escalation. Then those are things that you, as a leader in the police department, should be saying, you know what, I want to adopt that in my department. I want to do that. And listen, Alice Thomas said police officers should start at the age of 25, because after coming on the force straight out of high school, and communicate with one another to get to know the community. Exactly. Thank you for your comment, Alice. Listen, you're exactly right. The age requirement, yes, some police departments require, I think, what is it, 18 or
18? You're not even old enough to buy a
cigarette.
Bullet. You can't buy bullets,
but you can carry a gun and take someone's life. And if you're going to be, listen, I mean, we send people in what do you call it? We send them in the military to fight our battles. So I guess that's why they allow it on the police departments to come right out of high school and go right into the job. And that's something that has to be a discussion amongst the community and police departments moving forward. Caroline Clark said Newark actually did that to a private company many years ago. Yeah, I mean, listen, somebody probably recommended that who saw it, and the problem is pushed it up, but because it wasn't leadership who thought of it, they didn't want to adopt it, or they got rid of it. I've seen that happen where a person comes in and they didn't think of the ideas and they don't understand it. So what they don't understand, they get rid of, and that's wrong. So you're right. But I think that those are all good things that we should do and can do moving forward. And, we need to actually, community, please listen to what we're saying. We spent our time there, but we do this free of charge. We do this on our own time. Why? Because we care about you. We want to help you get understanding. And, we still believe, the three of us here, we still believe that police can work with community and they can be effective. I believe the answer is yes. Can we have police reform that will make our community safer? Yes, we can. But it takes police and community to come together and set the parameters of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what we're going to institute and what we're going to eliminate. One of the things that was said earlier was the qualified immunity. Yes, that's something that we have to look at. All right. We have something that we have to look at, because when you have bad officers, listen, they got to go. Good officers don't want bad officers on the job. Help us do what we have to do our job. So listen, we're done tonight. I thank you for the opportunity to share with you some thoughts, some conversation. I want to thank my guests, Steffi Treadwell and Anthony Cox, for coming on. We have some behind the scenes stuff that's going on, because we're all football fans.
Pittsburgh, baby.
And two of us are staunch rivals. I'm not going to say Stephanie, but it's me and Stephanie. We are staunch rivals, the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. Look at her face. Why didn't you put that up? I'm speaking now. But the thing is that we all love each other. Listen, we love each other, but we love you more. We were willing to sacrifice our lives. Every time we put that uniform on to go out in that street, we were ready to sacrifice our lives if it were to protect and serve you. We believe in protecting and serving the community. That's the name of the show, and that's what we do. I'm John Arnold. We'll see you next week, same time, Wednesday at 6 p.m. here on Facebook Live.
Take care.
Take care. Have a good night. Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Oh, boy. Karen.
Yes.
Karen behaving.
I'm looking at all the football things coming. Oh, my God. Here we go. Giants won. Yeah,
Sure did.
One game. Yep. We're good.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you later. I'm signing out of the studio at this time.
I'm gonna ask.
Wait.